I'm a very secure person. I know I'm on the right side of history. I'm married, so if she wants to say I look like a man, I literally could care less. The most heartbreaking part about this, for me, is the platform that she has and the amount of young girls who look up to her. That she just, in a blink of an eye, sold out to appear to be virtuous. What we saw from Simone is the definition of pulling up the ladder behind you. Something people like Megan Rapinoe have also done. I have a feeling that if Simone's inclusive dream came true, she would have 0 Olympic medals and no one would even know who she is.
So ladies and gentlemen, man oh man, the feuds on social media, they just don't stop, do they? And in this episode today, we got to talk about the next one that is just broken out, involving Riley Gaines and woke athlete Simone Biles. And this all came about because apparently people still don't recognize that men shouldn't be competing in women's sports. I know, left is right, up is down, common sense clearly very hard to find, especially with Simone Biles, because Riley Gaines called out a recent situation involving a trans athlete on a baseball team, and this team ended up winning a state championship. Yeah, the issue of men competing in women's sports goes on and on and on, and it is more ridiculous than ever. But after Riley Gaines called this out, and rightly so, it should be called out by everybody because it's a disgrace. We know men should not be competing in women's sports whatsoever, but Simone Biles, well, she didn't like what Riley Gaines had to say, and she had a total meltdown. It's actually quite embarrassing, but it didn't go as she would have hoped because most of the internet, they're roasting her for what she said. You know, I can guarantee you, Simone Biles sent out that tweet thinking, oh yes, we're all going to go after Riley Gaines. The internet is going to be on my side. Nah, it's not 2020 any longer. You know, it's 2025. A lot of people have woken up to this absolute insanity. But before we carry on with this video, ladies and gentlemen, and get into all the drama, if you could, make sure to leave a like rating as it really, really helps out the video. If you're new, hit that subscribe button, turn on bell notifications so you never miss a video, comment on this video, share this video, and let's get into it. So let's get into the very first post that kicked all of this off. As you can see, Riley Gaines is responding to this post here where the Minnesota State High School have posted a picture of their team winning the softball state championship for 2025, and there you can see there is the trans athlete towering over them all. Stunning, brave, progressive. And Riley Gaines says, comments offload to be expected when your star player is a boy. Yeah, they didn't want the backlash from that post, but Simone Biles really didn't like that for some reason. She goes on to say, you're truly sick. What? All this campaigning because you lost a race. Straight up, sore loser. Is this woman okay? Clearly not. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports. What about the women in sports? What about their safety? Obviously, these leftist liberals don't care about that. All they care about is inclusivity. Yet what makes me laugh is most of these people talk about women's safety. But when it comes to this issue, oh no, it's trans people who must feel safe in women's sports. And it's all about inclusivity. Give me a break, man. Maybe a transgender category in all sports, but instead, you bully them. One thing's for sure is no one in sports is safe with you around. Right, and that makes total sense. Somebody should probably have a word with this woman and check if her mental state is in good condition, because I don't think it is. The fact that we've strayed so far from common sense is just absolutely insane. But Riley Gaines goes on to say, in response, this is actually so disappointing. It's not my job or the job of any woman to figure out how to include men in our spaces. You can uplift men stealing championships in women's sports with your platform. Men don't belong in women's sports, and I say that with my full chest. Well, how dare you say such a thing? It is the most controversial thing to say. How dare you say men shouldn't be in women's sports? You should be cancelled. Mate, society needs to get a grip. It really does. How that post offended Simone Biles so much that she goes on to say, you're truly sick, is just crazy to me. But she doesn't stop there, so clearly she's very emotional. Bully someone your own size, which would ironically be a male, at Riley Gaines. Yeah, I think intelligence is also this forgotten thing within this stunning, brave, liberal society. But this is the point we have reached with this. Riley Gaines responds with, my height has been settled at Wikipedia. Please advise. And here she is in a video with her husband, I believe. It's around a minute long. Let's see Riley Gaines talking about her height.
Okay, figured I would whip out a tape measure to settle this debate. Wikipedia says I'm 5'9". Simone Biles yesterday told me to bully someone my own size and then said, ironically, that would be a man. Number one, acknowledging that there are differences between men and women. Number two, this is my 6'4" husband, the same height as Will Thomas, my super cute husband. We've got a tape measure. Clearly, I don't have shoes on. I'm standing back to back. Don't know why the lights are flickering. Maybe that's an omen. Standing back to back. I have to stand on it or the haters are going to say we have like a Republican tape measure. Back to back. What we got?
65.5 on the nose, a hair below actually.
5'5.5". So this is for the Wikipedia people who list me at 5'9". This is for Simone Biles.
Well, there you have Riley Gaines disproving the rumors that she's very tall. She's 5'5", and her husband is apparently the same height as Will Thomas, which is crazy, insane, and I still can't believe he was allowed to compete against other women. But welcome to social media. But as I said at the beginning of this video, Simone Biles is getting absolutely destroyed. We have Sage Steele here, who goes on to say, easy to say this at Simone Biles when you only had to compete against fellow women. Yeah, do you think if she competed against men, she'd be as famous or as successful as she is? Nah. Every one of your Olympic medals came competing against fellow women. At Riley Gaines was not only forced to compete against a man, but forced to share a locker room with a man. That is sick, yeah. Shocked and disappointed that you'd attack another woman who has done nothing but uplift other women. Yeah, exactly. Riley Gaines and others are trying to help women with this whole women's sports issue, but you have woke liberal feminists, I guess, like Simone Biles, who are trying to do the opposite because they seem to believe, for whatever reason, that these dudes should be competing in women's sports, which directly impacts the real women. If you think it makes sense to create a trans league for people, go for it. Use that huge platform of yours. But to attack Riley for what she has done for little girls who want to be next, Simone Biles is sick. Yeah, so not going the way she thought it was going to go. And it's not only on X, by the way, that people are coming after Simone Biles. We also have people on TikTok who aren't too happy. Take a watch.
Simone Biles tearing down Riley Gaines and telling her that she should be supporting the trans community and that she lost and that she should accept the fact that she lost is probably the most disgusting thing I've seen in a long time. It's Simone Biles. I don't know who she owes. I don't know who paid her to say that. But it is 100% paid. To go one step further and tweet that Riley Gaines, her actual competition, and quote unquote, pick on somebody your own size would be a male. This is the reason I'm publicly coming out and saying this. I've never been a fan of Simone Biles. She's always been a mean girl.
So Simone Biles, who succeeded in gymnastics because of rules like Title IX, is mad at Riley Gaines for protecting Title IX. And this is the same person who was assaulted by a male in her sport, but is totally okay and is advocating for men to dress as women and go into their sports in locker rooms and bathrooms. And then goes on to essentially body shame Riley, who is 5'5", by the way, when she's 4'8". She's a literal hobbit and is trying to say that Riley should bully men because men are her size. If that's the case, I'm 5'9". What the heck am I supposed to bully? I would say Harry Sisson, but he's probably like 5'6". And I'd also just like to point out that Simone would never be in this position if men were competing in her sport. She would never have all these gold medals and be as successful if men were competing in women's gymnastics. And the only reason we don't see trans women competing in women's gymnastics is because if they fell on the beam, it would hit them where it hurt. And I would be so embarrassed to be her future daughters, knowing that your mother was the person who actively fought to take away your opportunities and your rights in women's athletics, to take away your ability to have podium spots and awards, to win scholarships, to win competitions, to change in a locker room without men being in there. And you mentioned having a third category for transgenders. That is just not possible for a couple reasons. First of all, women's sports are already struggling to find financials and to find people to even watch them to begin with, so why would we create a third category that wouldn't be able to function? And two, creating a third category for transgenders is feeding into delusions. And it's just another category for men to win. We're even seeing with the Boston Marathon, the men's category, women's category, and they have a third category for like gender fluid or something stupid like that. That's 3 categories for men to win.
Yeah, Simone Biles, I'm sure you're very proud of yourself right now. And you thought women were going to stand by your side and agree with you. No, but I want to get into this next post here by somebody called Jeffrey Mead, who says, Simone Biles made her name in women's gymnastics, a sex-protected category. Now she's attacking Riley Gaines for defending the exact same principle in softball. If biological men had been allowed in your sport at Simone Biles, you'd be an anonymous footnote. Yeah, all these female athletes, which, the fact that female athletes want to advocate for men to compete in women's sports, that's just crazy in itself, is backwards. But these female athletes who advocate for it would not be as successful if there were men competing with them. If there were trans athletes in their sports, they'd be up in arms when they started losing. But because that isn't happening, and because they're competing against other women, and these female athletes are being very successful, and they're in this very, let's call it a privileged situation, they feel like they can speak up for this. Put them in a situation where there are dudes competing against them, and I'd love to see how quickly their mindset changes. I'd give it 24 hours. But he also posts this 2-minute video, which we're going to check out, so let's see what he has to say.
What is Simone Biles doing? All right, so let's get this straight. A high school softball team with a transgender pitcher wins the state championship. Here's an image of that. This is in Minnesota. So these are the type of things that Tim Walz in Minnesota support. So then Riley Gaines makes a post. Also, before I get into this, I also find it interesting that the other team in the championship didn't even score a run. Now let's go to Riley's post. Riley said, comments off, LOL. To be expected when your star player is a boy. Then under that she says, girls sports in 2025, a 6-0 shutout by a dude named Marissa, backed 100% by Minnesota Democrats. So then Simone Biles comes out of nowhere, like nowhere, and says this. At Riley Gaines, you're truly sick. All this campaigning because you lost the race. Straight up sore loser. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive, or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports, maybe a transgender category in all sports. But instead, you bully them. One thing's for sure is no one in sports is safe with you around. Then after that, Simone Biles went on to say, bully someone your own size, which would ironically be a male, which was a massive swing and a miss for a multitude of reasons. One, Riley Gaines is like 5'5", probably 130 to 140. Not really a manly size. Second off, it completely and ignorantly ignores the physiological differences between men and women. There are differences. There is a reason why we have men's sports and women's sports. Even in gymnastics, if you had men and women do all the same events and compete against each other, men would overwhelmingly win. And if she was made to compete against men in that way, she would not have all these gold medals. That's just the reality. It's kind of wild because her entire reputation is built off of the fact that our country has protected women by keeping men out of women's sports. If women didn't have that protection, we wouldn't know who Simone Biles is. We wouldn't have Olympic champion in her bio. She quite literally has been benefiting from the system that's allowed her to have this level of success, while then simultaneously attacking the people who want to keep that system in place that is protecting women and what has allowed women to have success in sports. Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. She should have just kept her mouth shut.
Yeah, but obviously she has trouble doing that. So agree with everything that dude said there, but leave it to the mainstream media as well to come out with absolute nonsense. And again, proving that left is right, up is down, common sense, hard to find. I don't know what journalists these people hire, but man, oh man, the standards have certainly dropped. Look at this. Simone Biles show her greatness again in standing up for transgender community. Simone Biles is apparently the GOAT in every sense of the word. The 7-time Olympic champion stood up for transgender athletes Friday night, taking to X to chastise Riley Gaines for the relentless verbal abuse she directs at transgender girls and women. Men. Anyone who is even slightly familiar with Biles knows she is an ally of her teammates, of her competitors, of SA abuse survivors, and unabashedly of the LGBTQ community. I think you missed a few letters out there. That is very discriminatory of you. She has also little use for anyone who punches down on others which is Gaines's speciality. Who wrote this article, man? Nancy, of course, a woman. Women advocating for men and women's sports. Doesn't make any sense. There is no scientific evidence that trans women athletes have a physical advantage over cisgender women athletes. Yeah, we're going to stop reading the article there because that is absolute. And I don't often swear on this channel, but when people come out with that stuff, you just know they need to go back to school and take a few biology lessons. Again, I don't know who they're hiring for these jobs, but boy, standards in the ground. But there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, a lovely state society is in. Let's just go back to this post here. Simone Biles going viral, 44.7 million views for saying Riley Gaines is truly sick for standing up for women and wanting men out of women's sports. Wow. Leave your thoughts down below, ladies and gentlemen, on this whole situation. What are your thoughts on this feud that is broken out on social media? I'd like to know. If you have enjoyed, once again, make sure to leave a like rating. If you're new, hit that subscribe button, turn on bell notifications so you never miss a video, share this video. But until next time, it has been your host JD. Have a great day, stay safe, and I'm out. Peace.